Good day, folks. Welcome to my neck of the woods. This is where I talk about my experiences, my opinions, and whatever knowledge I've gained over the years. So today, it's a good subject, I think, and it's whether or not we can control blood trails on deer or basically any other type of animal. Can we control how much they bleed based on the type of equipment that we're using? So before I get started, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my page, like any of my videos and comments. I always like comments. So can we control blood trails? So I see on social media all the time where a hunter, they talk about, well, I got this new broadhead. Have any of you ever tried it? And how are the blood trails? Or I'm looking for better blood trails because I'm not getting good blood trails. I don't think that we can control how much a deer or a game animal bleeds based upon our broadhead. Now, broadheads have different diameters. You know, some are 2 inch, some are 1 inch, some go up to 2.5 inches. We have expandables, we have fixeds. I'm not sure that any one of them can depict how much a deer is going to bleed. Never mind how much a deer is going to bleed out onto the ground. Never mind bleed. Now, to give you, before I get started, give you a little background on me and maybe my expertise on bleeding. So I'm a nurse by trade, and I worked up to 10 years in the emergency room. So I saw people with holes in them all the time, all types of bleeding, people with holes in them, people that were shot by guns, people that were stabbed, a lot of self-inflicted wounds in the emergency room that I worked at. And I've been a hunter for, I think this is my 11th year now. So I have that experience. But I have a very, very strong understanding of the respiratory and the heart and anatomy and how that works when you start poking holes in it. So I had an A&P professor when I took anatomy and physiology, and he was a bit of a lunatic, but he used to say that all the human body is, or all any body is a tube within a tube. And once you puncture that inside tube, it causes all sorts of havoc and problems. So, whatever broadhead we use, can that change the blood trail? Yes, it can change the blood trail, but it can't. You can't control the blood trail. We can't control how much a deer bleeds. So it all depends on, and I don't think the broadhead has anything to do with it. I think it has to do with the animal and all the variables that go along with that animal at that time. One is hypertension, or high blood pressure, excuse me. So high blood pressure exists in human beings because of their diet. It also exists in animals, but the variables and the how much it varies is probably quite different. So the higher pressure your blood is under, the more it's going to sort of explode or shoot out of your body or get a better blood trail. And there are organs and there are vessels within a deer that have a higher blood pressure. So a heart has a much higher blood pressure than a lung, or both lungs. And arterial vessels have a much higher blood pressure than veins. And arterial blood pressure it's coming from the heart, it has oxygenated blood from the heart. So if you've ever hit a deer and you see bright red blood, that's arterial blood. That means it's coming from the heart, usually going to the lungs or going to somewhere in the body. And then there is venous blood, which is usually darker, which means that it's carrying all the waste and it's going back to the heart to get rid of its waste and get rejuvenated and get oxygen again in the lungs, and then move its way back out. So if we double lung something, right? If we have a 2-blade broadhead or if we have a 4-blade broadhead, we can't control how much a deer bleeds. We can't. It's impossible. But what we can do is control, or try to control, shooting to kill and get a lethal shot. So there's many variables that go on. I'm just going to talk about a few. And one is when we hit an animal, so say it goes through the hide, say we double lung it, right? It goes through the hide, it goes through the ribs, and it goes through both lungs, and then it has to go through the ribs again, and then it has to go through the hide on the other side. So all those things independently move. So when we hit say this is the lung, say this is the hide, right? And then the ribs are on the other side. Once we poke a hole in them, they move independently, and they change how much blood is going to be pouring out of the animal or coming out of the animal. It all depends on the angle, and sometimes the movement of these two layers of the animal will block the blood flow, depending on, sometimes it gets stuck. Sometimes, you might break a rib and then something gets stuck in a weird way and the animal just fills up with blood, or it just bleeds out one side. So to put all the emphasis on the broadhead to try to change the blood trails is impossible. Now, some blood trails are better than others based on your own personal experiences. Like a lot of people say that if you use like a bigger broadhead, you're going to get a better blood trail. It's not true. It's not true at all. It all depends on the individual animal at that time and what's going on. It depends where you hit it, obviously, too. You want to hit it in those high vascular organs, lungs or heart. Those are the main ones. I mean, there's the aorta that is under high pressure. If you hit that, sometimes when people spine a deer, which isn't done on purpose, they'll hit the aorta, and the deer will bleed out very, very quickly. And sometimes there's good blood trails, sometimes there's not. A lot of it gets stuck on the animal. And that's another thing that I bring up. A deer's blood coagulates or clots much quicker than almost any other animal on the planet. I'm going to compare it to human beings. So human beings, they clot much slower than a deer. Just based on the circulatory system of the deer, and that's why that happens. So a deer's blood is going to clot much quicker than a human's. So we have that going against us. So there's something you can do that I'm trying to give you an example here. So I've shot a deer. It went straight through the heart, double lunged it, and I got no blood. None. I mean, I got droplets, and then when we found the deer, there was tons of hemorrhage all near the deer. And there's other ones where I've double lunged and gotten tons of blood. It's like someone took a paint can and just poked a hole in it of red paint, and it was easy to follow. So everyone's experiences are going to be different. Now, there's another thing that comes into play. A lot of people claim that you use the Rage or the Schwacker or the some big expandable, that you're going to get a better blood trail. All you're going to do is make a bigger entrance hole. That's all you're going to do, and that doesn't really translate into a better blood trail. Hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. So a lot of times mechanicals don't go all the way through. They make a big hole, and then you just get blood out one side. I'm not saying all the time. Everyone has their own experiences. But as a whole, mechanicals don't always go all the way through. Or sometimes the mechanical will make it all the way through, but the arrow won't. Which brings me to another point. When you work in the emergency room or you work anywhere where trauma is involved, like Trauma 101 is, if you're impaled with something, you leave it in. And a lot of times those people go off to the OR. Because if you pull that out, they're going to bleed to death, depending on what vessels are hit. So say you shoot a deer, right? And it goes 9 inches in, which is more than enough. If you hit it in the vital organs, it's more than enough penetration you need to kill it. But it's not going to bleed that much. It's not going to get a great blood trail because that arrow is still in that deer. And it may run, say it runs 200 yards with that arrow in it, and then the arrow rips out, then it should just pull right out. But all those other things are in play with movement and whatnot. So to recap, you really can't control the blood trails. Don't put all the emphasis on your broadheads. I see a lot of people doing that, and in my opinion, it's a mistake. Just shoot to kill, hit vital organs, and follow up on your deer. If you do hit it right, and just watch where it runs off. Some of them just fall over, and watch where it runs off. You're gonna find that deer in the in the vicinity of it. If you're, obviously, it's happened to me too. If you are looking for your deer 500 yards away, obviously the shot wasn't lethal. All right. Hopefully that helps you folks out. Like I always say, please subscribe to my channel, like all my videos, and make some comments. All right. I'll see you folks later. Be well.